Let's talk about staking. So before we begin about diving into what is staking, let me just explain what I just touched base a little bit earlier. I talked about proof of work. So one thing I forgot to mention is why do we need proof of work and proof of stake? So the reason is very simple. When Satoshi Nakamoto came up with the idea of blockchain or decentralized finance, he basically saw that the problem that we currently have with centralized banking, if you put the power in the hands of one entity, it might gonna try to rig it and use it for its own benefit. And that's why the idea of decentralized finance came alive. And what does that mean exactly? As I mentioned, the blockchain itself as a technology is spreading a ledger of transaction among all the people holding the same ledger. But the way the transactions are written need to have some kind of an agreement among a group that writing the transaction. That agreement is called consensus. And the way that you get the consensus among the users of the network is by either proof of work, meaning each user that wants to write new transaction on the block is giving some kind of a puzzle, a mathematical puzzle. That's the cryptography is coming in handy. And in order to solve these puzzles, you take very strong computers and use them in order to solve the mathematical problem. Now, think about it as a competition that there's several, like, let's take, for example, the game The Price is Right. Each computer is basically guessing the closest number. You say to your friend, guess what number I'm thinking about. And each contestant, if you would play a guessing game with your friend would tell you, guess what number I'm thinking about. Now, it's not a regular number from 1 to 10. It's like much more complex number, hexadecimal number. If you don't know what's a hexadecimal, I'm going to talk about it a little later. But for example, I'm thinking about a specific number, at least 16-digit number. Guess what it is. So each one of your friends is going to try to guess the closest number to what you're thinking of. Now, that's basically the competition that the computers game, but in much more complicated and massive way. As I mentioned, hexadecimal number. It's a number that's combined from letters from numbers from 1 to 9 and letters from A to F. So it's a bit more complicated in order to understand what exactly the number. That's basically the mathematical quiz that the nodes are needed to prove that they actually can solve in order to write transaction on the block. Now, a lot of blockchains try to solve the problem of who is going to be writing the new transaction on the block by, instead of just giving the consensus for one entity, they're going to try to vote someone else from the network every time. The person who's been chosen to write new transaction on the block is considered a validator. Every blockchain chose different consensus mechanism in order to choose who's going to be the validator for their net. So in the Bitcoin is working on proof of work. It's basically whatever computer or user using solving the mathematical problem fastest, he's the one writing the transaction and he's getting reward by mining, is getting reward by crypto. That's the actual functionality of mining crypto. And other blockchains like Polkadot, they voting who's going to be the validator. The other consensus mechanism is staking, proof of stake. Meaning, let's say you have at least 30 Ethereum. You wish, but let's say you have 30 Ethereum. You decide to stake your Ethereum. And I think if you have at least 20 or 45 Ethereum, you're getting the status of a validator. Now, there are several validators that are validating transaction, and they're always randomly switching between them. But in order to become a validator and earn interest and rewards, you need to stake your money. So that's the other mechanism that they thought about what will be a good solution. If people actually put some skin in the game and say, I'm locking my money in the staking pool in order to get the status of writing new transactions. They know that first, they still getting interest on the money they are staking in the staking pool. Second, when they're validating transaction, they're helping the network to keep rolling and they still earning more crypto. In the Ethereum specifically, the miners currently, after the London update, the EIP 1559, they try to eliminate in order to deflate the circulation of the coin. So basically, every time a miner is writing a transaction or a validator is writing the transaction on the blockchain, is basically taking the tip that he's receiving from whoever's purchased or did a transaction on the network, and the rest of the Ethereum that he uses is just burning out. That way, it will keep the liquidation, the circulation of Ethereum and the Ethereum network very low in order to keep the price up. I know it's a bit more complicated concept, proof of work, proof of stake. Let's say, for example, in Solana, the way that the validating consensus mechanism is working is called proof of history. They took, for example, if you look in their video that I added right here, they took the example of proof of history. And what does it mean? They said, just the way you can see the chemical reaction of two elements combining together. Let's say you put a drop of acid in like another element that's reacting to it, you can see how long it took the acid to spread. So it's basically like a process. You look at several pictures in order to understand what came first and what came later. And that's basically the order of transaction that will save a lot of time and effort to validate the transaction in the right order. Because as you can understand, the whole mechanism of blockchain is based on order of transaction. I gave you the money and you gave me the money. What came first? So in order to understand what came first, that's why we have some kind of a consensus mechanism, who's writing what transaction and in what order. Now, if you want to learn more about other consensus mechanism, I'll be happy to make another video. I'm also going to attach another article that talks about the current consensus mechanism. My honest opinion, I believe that we will get to a point that there will be one or two, maybe three major blockchain that will dominate the market, and the rest is just going to follow up. It's not going to be as complicated. It's going to save a lot of money for a lot of people. Because honestly, most of the transactions that have been recorded on the blockchain right now, if you want to buy NFTs, crypto, you're going to have to pay some kind of a transaction fee. That's the gas fees. I talked about it in this video that talked about gas fees. But all these gas fees are basically what's making the system very sluggish. Meaning if you want to trade, if you want to buy, if you want to make any transaction on that network, you're going to have to pay some hefty fees in order to do everything. If we want to make this system actual functional for day-by-day users, if you want to go to the gas station, to the convenience store, to Walmart, to buy something with crypto, you have to make it cheaper and faster. Right now it is fairly fast, a lot faster than the banks, but the problem is it's not cheap. If we'll be able to make it cheap and fast, we'll get there. If you want to learn how to stake, I'm going to talk about it in more depth in this video. How to stake Ethereum, how to stake any crypto. If there's any specific, I'm going to try to go first with the most popular cryptocurrencies that people are looking to stake. And then if you have a specific request, you're not sure how to stake your crypto in a specific staking pool, or one of these liquidity farm, decentralized market, I'm more than happy to make another video dedicated just for that subject.